Hi English 144 and welcome to our asynchronous discussion of Nairobi heat. First and foremost, I'm going to take you into a discussion about the author of the book. Just some quick facts about him. He is a Kenyan poet and author. He was born in 1971 in Illinois and grew up in Kenya before returning back to the United States for education. And he is also the son of a world-renowned African writer, so it runs in the family. Just diving a little bit deeper into our author, I wanted to make it clear that he is a very passionate believer in making sure that African literature is represented correctly and respectfully in all forms of art. He wrote an article called "Africa is Not a Proverb," and through this article, he stated that in the United States, African culture is mostly portrayed through drums and dancing, but it is much more than that. So I want to ask, is this true for you? Just being from the United States, was this how you perceived African culture to be? The most important thing that I want you to understand as we are discussing this novel is that the author believes that African culture is a struggle, while also a beautiful art that must be celebrated by more than just a beat of a drum. And also that African culture is not silent. So I challenge you to pick out some of the ways that the author shows this struggle and also some of the ways that he shows this beautiful culture throughout the novel.
So let's talk about a moral compass, or really, what is a moral compass? And if we Google it, we get two different answers. It's technically used as a reference to a person's ability to judge what is right and wrong and act accordingly, or an internalized set of values and objectives that guide a person with regard to ethical behavior and decision-making. In other words, it's basically our inside voice, or, internal feeling that tells us whether something is right or wrong, whether something is moral, not moral, or whether something is ethical or unethical. So how do we develop a moral compass? And really, it's a cumulative property. We're taught to uphold various ethical, moral, and even social standards throughout our childhood and our surroundings, such as never be vulgar in public, not steal from others, treat others how we want to be treated, etc., etc. We're taught to uphold a particular line of moral dignity through traditions, cultures, and even through legal means. And if we look at some examples below, we have the photo to the uttermost left, which is a MIT example, or an experiment that was designed to test how humans would react, whether you would want the car to hit the barrier of the 5 people on the left. And then we have the 2 examples on the right, which are the common tram ethical moral scenarios, where you would have to pull the lever, and it has to go one or the other direction, and it would test how humans value life, and what the more moral ethical decision might be per human, and the beliefs that they were brought up with. But not necessarily everyone has the same moral compass, as not everyone has the same traditions, experience, or culture. So what happens when we encounter someone who has a different moral compass? Some examples of people with different moral compasses in Nairobi heat are such as when the people in the bar got paid to assassinate or try to assassinate Ishmael and O. And another scene would be trading lives to save an innocent life, the shootout at the beginning of the story. Human greed at the expense of innocent lives, once again, would be the Never Again Foundation. And again, when Ishmael had to go back to the station in Africa after the shootout, he thought he would have to do a lot of paperwork, but rather they just asserted that as long as they killed the bad guys and the good guys are still living, it was okay. And how does this sense of morality and this moral compass affect the main character throughout the story? And as we see Ishmael progress through the story, we see his own innate moral values change, as well as his moral compass. In the beginning, we saw him being very disgusted at the idea, much less the action of taking someone's life, where he would puke every time that would happen. But throughout the story, as we progress, we see him change. We see him, be more quicker to the gun whenever he has to kill someone so he can survive. To the point where at the end of the story, he was willing to kill 4 people just so he could escape without thinking anything about it, and would not puke, no hesitation, nothing at all. And it demonstrates how our moral compass isn't really innate, but rather shaped by those around us, and composes of different levels so that we can adapt and survive in the environment that we live in. So what does this mean? Well, it means that a moral compass isn't really innate in us, but is rather developed over time from our surroundings, such as culture and tradition. Rather than being something that we're born with, it demonstrates how a moral compass is similar to like a belief that we develop over time. And even to show that even the most primitive beliefs are subject to change based on our environment. We adapt to the most basic moral standards of how we value life to survive based on the law of the land and what's necessary for us humans to survive. And it is shown very profoundly in Nairobi Heat that Ishmael had to adapt and change his own beliefs in order to survive in Africa and not get killed.